Okay. Good morning. Today is Monday, June 7th, 2021, and this is a meeting of the Virginia Redistricting Commission. I am Mackenzie Babachenko, co-chair of the commission, and I will be presiding over this meeting. I want to remind members, staff, and any other speakers on today's virtual meeting of a couple of items. First, please keep your microphone muted until you are ready to speak. This improves the quality of the audio for the meeting. And before you speak, remember to unmute yourself. Also, please remember to state your name before speaking and especially before making a motion. This helps in our keeping track of what's happening. And I know we have a number of motions likely to happen today. Any votes taken will be done by voice and by giving a hand signal, and the staff will call the roll for each vote taken. For the public comment period, the registration for the public comment has closed. We do have 4 individuals who have signed up to provide public comment. This comment will be limited to 2 minutes at the discretion of the chair. I also note that members of the public who wish to comment on an agenda item may do so by sending an email to varedist@dls.virginia.gov. The comment will be posted on the division's website at http://virginiaredistricting.org. Again, for members of the public who would like to comment on today's meeting, the email address is varedist@dls.virginia.gov. So we have a lot, I think, to get through today. So we can try to sort of go through quickly. I'll highlight what's on the agenda. We're going to get reports from the subcommittees led by the co-chairs. So we'll hear from the finance, the budget and finance subcommittee. We'll hear from the citizen engagement subcommittee. And we have a number of items that have been recommended from those subcommittees. And I believe we will be taking some votes to move this process along. We will be discussing the future commission meeting schedule. I think we have some items there to discuss about where, how often, if we're meeting as a whole, and then we will move to the public comment period. So if we can start with a report from the co-chairs of the budget and finance.
Madam Chair. Would you like me to take roll?
Yes, I would. I'm sorry. I just got excited about how much work we had. I skipped over that. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Brenio?
Here.
Mr. Feliciano?
Here.
Mr. Gilliam?
Present.
Mr. Harrell?
Here.
Mr. Hutchins?
Present.
Mr. Kumar?
Here.
Delegate Adams?
Here.
Senator Barker?
Here.
Senator Locke? Senator McDougall?
Here.
Delegate McQuinn?
Here.
Senator Newman?
Here.
Delegate Ranson?
Here.
Delegate Simon?
Here.
Ms. Harris?
Here.
Ms. Babachenko?
Here.
Madam Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Okay, so let's start with a report from the Budget and Finance Subcommittee. Just go in order listed. Mr. Kumar, what updates do you have for us?
Yes, Madam Chair. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
All right. So I'm looking through the staff report and just provide a quick summary from that. So we've got our working budget total of $404,327. At this stage, regarding a budget, we decided we were not going to make a formal recommendation but the working budget's been attached. There doesn't appear to be a shortage of funds based on the initial estimate. We did take a vote after some robust discussion on what to do regarding attorneys. And on a 5-3 vote, the subcommittee made a recommendation that 2 attorneys or law firms be procured to represent the 2 major partisan interests of the Commonwealth and the Commission. So 1 attorney or law firm for the Democratic Party and the Republican Party traditionally to advise the, elected officials or those interests as we come up with a plan. By unanimous vote of 8-0, the subcommittee also recommended procuring a communications and outreach services professional to develop and administer a proactive media strategy. So those were the major 2 points just to present the facts of what we've done, and I'll leave it to Mr. Gillum to fill in anything else from the work of the subcommittee so far.
Mr. Gillum, are you there?
You're muted, Mr. Gillum.
Okay, well, first of all, Sean, I think you were in Japan. Is that correct?
That's correct. I'm a little jet lagged, and it's about 11 p.m. here.
Okay. Sean is on deployment in Japan this month. So thank you for your service. But I would not add anything to what Sean said. We did have a well-discussed issue about the procurement of professional services for the attorneys, and we did vote 5-3, and that was the only non-unanimous decision that we made. So that will be something that will be looking at the committee as a whole. But I have nothing else to add to his comments.
Thank you, Mr. Gilliam. So my thought is that we can start on the communication and outreach coordinator and see if there is a motion to adopt the recommendation of the subcommittee.
Madam Chair.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, before the adoption of the subcommittee report, can I have, just for clarification, I think I heard, but I may not have. So how are we addressing the attorney issues in terms of those that we would need? Did I hear well, can someone sort of speak to that again, please?
Yes, ma'am. We met as a subcommittee, and there were a few different suggestions put forth and discussed, as Mr. Kumar put robustly, over whether we were going to go with an RFP soliciting 2 separate counsel, one leaning Republican, one leaning Democrat, both to act as co-counsel for the entire committee, or if there was going to be a neutral option suggested as well. All of that was discussed, and then there was a recommendation by the subcommittee just to put up for discussion, and there will likely be a motion to adopt that recommendation and then discussed up in the full committee here today. Does that answer any part of your question?
So we will have further discussion on whether we are selecting 2 council individuals, one being Democrat or one being Republican, versus having a person who's in a nonpartisan position that could serve us, or is it just basically because we needed all of that? So I'm just.
Today is for that final decision to be made,
Okay.
and for everyone else who has not been a part of the subcommittee to provide input and provide their position.
All right. Thank you. Thank
Okay.
you, Madam Chair.
And I thought we could start with the outreach coordinator, since that was a little bit more that was unanimous and not hotly debated at the subcommittee. And so the recommendation to hire an outreach coordinator, is there a motion to adopt that recommendation from the subcommittee?
Madam
Madam Chair, this is Greta Harris, and I would make that motion.
Is there a second?
I second that, Sean Kumar.
Okay, so we have a second on the motion to adopt the recommendation to hire a communication and outreach coordinator from the subcommittee. Is there any discussion on that? I'm not hearing any discussion. So are we able to, Amigo, is staff, are you able to call a roll call, or Claire?
Yes, ma'am. I can call the roll call vote, and I will do it now. Mr. Abrenio,
Yes.
Mr. Feliciano,
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam,
Yes.
Mr. Harold,
Yes.
Mr. Hutchins,
Yes.
Mr. Kumar,
Yes.
Delegate Adams,
Yes.
Senator Barker,
Yes.
Senator Locke, Senator McDougal,
Aye.
Delegate McQuinn,
Aye.
Senator Newman,
Aye.
Delegate Ransom,
Yes.
Delegate Simon,
Aye.
Ms. Harris,
Yes.
Ms. Babachenko.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The motion carries 15-0, one not voting.
Okay, thank you, Amigo. So the recommendation to hire a coordinator has passed. And so then the next question, the follow-up question is, there was a recommended request for the proposal that was circulated, that would be the document that got sent out for the purpose of hiring a coordinator in RFP. I hope everyone had a chance to look at it and review it and think about whether or not it was good as is. It was certainly discussed in the subcommittee and reviewed in the subcommittee. So at this time, is there a motion? Well, is there any discussion about the RFP as it is right now? Does anyone have any feedback that didn't already provide feedback during the subcommittee?
Madam Chair, this is Amigo Wade with Legislative Services. I just wanted to just have one, point of information that we wanted to get the proposal into your hands as soon as possible. It's still going through our editing department, so there may be adjustments in the actual language after it comes back from our proofing department. We thought it was more important to get the gist of it in your hands. So there may be some minor changes that would be grammatical.
Okay, so are we approving the document today? You're saying that there's still going to be a few more.
Yes. I think that once we have the direction to go ahead and move forward with the hiring of this position, we probably don't have to vote on the actual proposal because, as I said, it's still going through our proofing department. We're sorry about the compressed time frame.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Senator Barker.
Yes, Senator Barker here. I think it might be worthwhile, particularly since this is our first time having this commission here in Virginia, to in effect pass a motion or consider a motion to recommend the substance of what's been presented in the draft RFP, but also authorize staff to make any minor clarifications or changes that would improve that process.
I think that is are you making that motion?
I'd be happy to make that motion. Yes, that's the motion I'm making now. So,
is there a second on that motion? I think that's a well put motion.
This is Rick Harrell. I second the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Harrell. Is there any discussion on the motion to essentially approve the draft RFP for the communication and outreach coordinator while allowing minor amendments made by staff so that we can move forward? Is there any discussion on that? Hearing no discussion, Amigo, could you please call a roll vote?
Yes, Madam Chair. Mr. Abrenio,
Yes.
Mr. Feliciano,
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam,
Yes.
Mr. Harrell,
Aye.
Mr. Hutchins,
Aye.
Mr. Kumar, Delegate Adams,
Yes.
Senator Barker,
Aye.
Senator Locke, Senator McDougal,
Aye.
Delegate McQuinn, Delegate McQuinn,
Aye. Aye.
Senator Newman,
Aye.
Delegate Ransome,
Aye.
Delegate Simon,
Aye.
Miss Harris,
Aye.
Miss Babichenko.
Aye.
Madam Chair, the motion passes 15-0.
Thank you, Amigo.
Madam Chair, yeah, I'm sorry, this is Delegate
Yes.
McQuinn. I've got to leave out for a moment. I'm in my car for 10:30 meeting to do a event and to speak for a second, and then I'll be back. So I'll leave you on, but if I don't respond, that's because I'm not here back yet. Okay? Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Okay, so let's. I'm sorry. Who is somebody trying to speak? Is that Senator Newman?
Only
Yes,
when,
sir.
but if you're ready, I mean, I think that the subcommittee did discuss in great detail kind of this idea of having bipartisan council, and there were members that were for it, and there were those that had concerns about it. But I think it's probably one of the most important things, Madam Chair, that we're going to do, because clearly doing this in a bipartisan manner is really critical, and how we start is going to have a big impact on how we finish. I think Senator Barker has brought up some great concerns about making sure that we know all the legal concerns from all sides as we kind of go into this process. The other concern, and I think some on the subcommittee heard, that there just simply are not law firms that are, quote, nonpartisan in this field. There are very few individuals that do this work at all, and all of them do it from one party or the other. So that we've discussed kind of that unicorn out there really doesn't exist. The other concern, Madam Chair, is this. If we did find someone who said that they're just the unicorn, the amount of work that would have to be done to find out what they really are behind the scenes would be just enormous. I mean, the number of questions we'd have to go through. And since other states have gone down multiple paths, but one of them that we took some of the documents you see have gotten them from the Republican side and the Democrat side, and it seemed the most bipartisan thing to do is to have counsel on both sides. The subcommittee recommended that we have two counsels and get out there very quickly with RFIs to request that information. Madam Chair, if it's okay with you, I just like to make a motion that we adopt the subcommittee recommendation as a result, as it relates to bipartisan counsel under the provisions of the motion that we just took, that technical amendments could be made. So I would so move, Madam Chair.
I second that motion. It's Margaret Ranson.
Is there any discussion?
Madam
Yes.
Chair,
Yes, I have Delegate Simon.
I'll defer to Ms. Harris. I always defer to the Citizen Commission member. So Ms. Harris can go first.
Madam
Thank you.
Co-Chair Harris?
Yeah, thank you, Delegate Simon. And as I expressed in the Budget and Finance Subcommittee, I am not an attorney, and I am confident, though, having worked with law firms for decades, that it is possible to craft an RFP that is neutral and explains to a law firm that what the commission is needing from a legal counsel perspective. I think, again, acknowledging that I don't have experience with redistricting, that it is going to be more problematic to have two potentially opposing counsels providing sometimes disparate legal advice to one commission. Citizens in Virginia overwhelmingly wanted a new process for ensuring equitable access to electing their representatives for the Commonwealth of Virginia. And so while in the past there has been partisan legal counsel for redistricting, I think this creates in 2021 an excellent opportunity to try some new things. And at a minimum, I would take Senator Newman's motion and augment it by saying, while we put out the partisan RFP, to put out a neutral RFP at the same time, and let's see who responds. I don't think it hurts anything to be able to put out both strategies for trying to get the best legal counsel that keeps us within the spirit and intent of the law. Thank you.
And Ms. Harris, is that a motion to amend the current motion before the commission?
Madam Chair, I'm not 100% sure. I think I'd like to just have conversation, and then if need be, I'll go back and make an amendment, but it's not official yet. I'd like to hear what other members of the commission are thinking at this point.
Okay, fair enough. Is there any other discussion on the current motion before the commission, which is to adopt the subcommittee's recommendation for two counsel?
Madam Chair?
Yes,
Madam Chair, Senator Barker.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Madam Chair. I agree and voted for the motion that is before us right now in the subcommittee. And I do think this is a very important vote. And what I'm concerned about is if we go in a different direction than this, that we run a risk of creating major hurdles for us to get over, and at least some potential as it relates to people being satisfied and voting for the maps in the end. Obviously, this is the first time we've had a commission to do this, so we're trying things out. And we have intentionally built into the constitutional amendment requirements for supermajority votes, clearly trying to push us in a direction of seeking consensus and making sure that try to have everybody or virtually everybody comfortable with what we come up with in the end. My concern is that if we ended up going with someone who was not, was tagged at least as nonpartisan, that there would be people on one political side or the other, or both, having some unease with the process and with not making sure that that the concerns that they might have, whether it's relating to the implementation of the criteria or the racial characteristics or other types of things, that they might not have full confidence in that person to be able to represent all perspectives fairly there. And I don't want to have a situation where we pick someone who's nonpartisan, and then as we go through the process, what we find is the opinions of that person are consistent with either one political party's normal opinions or the other political parties. And I think that would clearly undermine our process and undermine the potential for reaching a quick consensus once we have the population data there. So I think it is important that everybody have someone there that would be providing them some comfort in final decisions on things, and then how we approach everything, and also maybe someone who had a different perspective as well. But I don't want us to in effect start down a path where we are increasing the chance that people on the commission, as well as members of the public, are going to be uneasy, have some unease with what's happening with the recommendations or the opinions or the comments of the attorney that we would have if we had just the one attorney.
Thank you, Senator Barker. Is there any further discussion on this topic?
Madam Chair, if I could, James Brinio.
Yes, Mr. Brinio.
So I'm kind of finding it hard to understand why it would be difficult to just put out a nonpartisan RFP. I do criminal defense. Ms. Babachenko, you do prosecution. On every issue, I think both you and I can identify what the issues are and say, okay, here is how I would approach it as a prosecutor. Here's how I would approach it as a defense attorney. I think that being a good attorney is being able to identify issues from both the left and right, if you want to call it defense prosecution, if you want to call it plaintiff defense attorney, if you want to call it that. I think that I would rather have one very good attorney that has a complete understanding that we vet them properly, and I understand that's good work, rather than two different partisan attorneys that are seen purely as partisan. What the public has done here in creating this commission is an effort to do things differently. I understand there are two legislatures from two sides of the aisle that agree that we need two different attorneys, but there are citizens here, and I'm not a savvy politician. We're just trying to spend some of our free time to do some good community service here and do something important for the state and something that's never been done before. I don't think it hurts to at least solicit an opportunity. Maybe they're right. Maybe there is no unicorn. Maybe that's not going to work out, but I don't think it harms us to at least put it out there and see what happens. That's how I see it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brinio. Is there anyone else that would like to comment on this topic?
Madam Chair, Delegate Simon.
Yes.
I sort of shared James's, I think he probably said it better than I will, but I'm going to say it just because I think it's important for the public to hear at least one legislator sort of agreeing with the couple of citizens that have spoken up on this issue. I understand Senator Newman and Senator Barker's anxiousness to get this going and get these folks in place. I mean, I think this was a motion they had at the very first meeting we had in January to get this process moving this way. That said, I think we've got some time, and I understand. If I think I understand Senator Newman and Senator Barker correctly, it's sort of like, why bother? We're never going to be comfortable unless we've got our guy in one of the corners of the room to talk to. And so I think that's probably why they're saying let's not even bother with the neutral person, because we're not going to vote for it at the end of the day anyway. That said, I think it would give, because we have a lot of citizens and a lot of people participating in the process that are new to it, I think we have 3 RFPs drafted by staff. They all look good. I would prefer, Ms. Harris make her motion that we advertise all 3. And it may be that we get to the same result that Senator Newman and Senator Barker predict. And that may be that that's the best way to go. But I think for everybody's sake and for the transparency piece and to keep all the options alive for as long as possible, again, I don't see why we wouldn't advertise all 3 RFPs and just see what happens. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Delegate Simon. I see Senator McDougall's hand raised.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Madam Chairman, I want to speak to this thought process that somehow the legislators are not citizens. In Virginia, we have a very unique legislative process in that we serve part-time and are citizen legislators. I have a job. I can't speak for all the rest of the members who come from the legislature, but we work very hard in our capacity. I have children in school, which I have to make sure get there and get properly educated. So we are all citizens on this committee, and we are all working to try to find the best solutions. So it is not some citizens on the committee and some non-citizens. We are all citizens, and particularly in Virginia, the legislature is made up of individuals who are citizens.
Thank you, Senator McDougall. Do we have any other comment on this
Sure.
issue?
This is Sean Kumar.
Mr. Kumar? Yes.
Yeah. I mean, to Senator McDougal's point, I think what we mean when we say that is not non-elected official, right, as a way to distinguish those of us who have districts that are going to be redrawn or represent people in districts we currently hold that we're redrawing here versus those of us who do not hold partisan office and who had to meet strict guidelines to be eligible to serve as a citizen member on this commission. I'm actually not even sure if citizen is in the amendment or the enabling legislation rather than something we've just used here. But I think we all understand his point. There was some, as part of our discussion in the subcommittee, I mean, a couple other things came to light that I think are relevant. The bottom line is I support what Ms. Harris has said and what Delegate Simon has said, as well as Mr. Abrania. It came to light that traditionally in the process, in the old way, the partisan caucuses hired their own counsel to advise them as they went through this. And they paid for those. Right here, we would be using taxpayer money allocated for this commission to come up with these districts to pay for those partisan counsel by hiring them as our counsel. The client here for whatever we hire with these commission funds will be the commission itself, the entire commission. So I think there's some confusion as to how it would even work with two sets of counsel, right? There's not going to be any opportunity for anyone on this commission to meet privately with that counsel, is my understanding. Everything has to be done during the meeting. So it's going to be any issues we discuss, it's going to be then paying for two opinions at the same time that may be contradictory. Again, we brought this up. Part of it goes back to the process. How are we going to draw the maps, right? Which we need to decide, and we need to decide soon, and that has a bearing on it. But given the scope of work we're asking for in the RFP, I don't see how it matters. And honestly, I don't care if it's a traditionally Republican or a Democratic leaning council or someone who can persuade us that they're neutral, which I agree we have nothing to lose by putting it out there and seeing what we get back and trying. But getting an opinion on the law when we are all here to represent whether elected officials or non-elected officials, all as citizens of the Commonwealth, we can provide that partisan aspect by asking the question, well, isn't it true this way or isn't it true that way, with one set of counsel that can do the work and present those opinions. It doesn't cost us anything here to put out the nonpartisan option and to show the people of the Commonwealth that we're open-minded enough to believe that it's possible someone could do this work, right? There's also no problem with the partisan caucuses hiring out of their own funds, as they've traditionally done in the past, hiring their own counsel to advise those caucuses or even the members, I suppose, of this body who do belong to caucuses because they are elected officials whose districts we are redrawing and have more of an interest, in a sense, in some ways, than the citizens do to specific districts here. They could still pay that out of pocket if they wanted. They know who those firms are already, and they could hire them. So I think this, to pursue this through partisan counsel at the get-go, I think this is a critical juncture. Delegate Simon made the point in our last subcommittee meeting before the vote that, this is of too much consequence maybe for the subcommittee to even made a recommendation on this. This is not an issue about money and how to spend it, though clearly two sets of counsel will be, I would argue, probably more than twice as expensive as one set of counsel because of the extra work of the two differing opinions from the different partisan angles. So I don't want to steal Ms. Harris's thunder since she made the comment or the mention. I think the way we did it in the subcommittee meeting was I made a substitute motion that we include that nonpartisan piece. So, I don't want to obviously close discussion if there's more, but if that's what Ms. Harris wants to do, I would second that motion for a substitute motion.
So, Mr. Kumar, are you making the motion or are you seconding a hypothetical motion if Ms. Harris is going to make it?
I'm letting it be known that if she were to make that motion, I would second it.
Okay. Does anyone have anything to say at this time?
Madam Chair.
Yes, Mr. Harrell.
I think it's always important when making important decisions to go back to the basics. And you need to look at the source document and how are we created and what kind of commission are we? We're not a nonpartisan commission. We are a bipartisan, representatives from both parties, and every person, citizen, human being on this commission was put there by one of the two parties. And there's no getting around that. We all try, as Mr. Brino, Mr. Kumar said, I think, to try to render the most impartial, fair decision that we can and hope that we will. But we're still leaning. In the law, in a way, that's the burden of proof. Burden of proof. A lot of things are decided that way because people generally, as proven by a Nobel Prize winning behavioral economist 20 years ago, make decisions instinctively and then develop the rationalities to support them. So we are a bipartisan advisory commission. We have to have supermajorities among ourselves on the major decisions of creating the districts. And then we have to get that through the legislature. So we're advising them and they either approve it or disapprove it. We get one chance to fix it and then it goes to the courts. So the idea that we're going to find is, we call it a unicorn, kind of whatever you want to call it, but people cannot walk that thin line and tell you how the best way to solve the problem, because it's not just reading the law. The law has to be applied in facts, and the facts that we have are unique, and this commission is unique. And if I am to be informed to my best decision, I agree with Senator Barker that I need to have the best advice of the best Republican and best Democrat, because they are likely together to give me the most informed opinion for me to come out with the best decision that I can on any particular districts or the districts as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harrell. Does anyone else who has not contributed on this topic wish to contribute something at this time? Well, at this time, we have a motion to adopt the subcommittee recommendation. Amigo, are you able to take a roll call vote?
Well, Madam Chair, this is Greta Harris. I'm not exactly sure when a revision to the proposed motion should be made, but if this is now the correct time, which again, I'm not sure it is.
It is.
Now it's fine.
Okay, now then I would revise Senator Newman's motion to also include a neutral RFP for legal counsel.
Okay, so there is a substitute motion at this time to also include the neutral RFP to go out. Is there a second?
I second. This is Sean Kumar.
Mr. Kumar is the second. Is there any discussion on this?
Madam Chair, just one clarification. Senator Barker here.
Yes, Senator Barker.
Would that be as an alternative to the two that had been recommended by the subcommittee, or would this be a third attorney who would be representing us?
It's my understanding this would be an alternative. Everything would go out, the neutral and the two partisan requests, and then we would see what we would get and see what comes back and make a decision at that point.
And Madam Chair, this is Greta Harris. That is correct. That's the intent of the revised motion.
Thank you, Ms. Harris. Is there any, is that Delegate Simon? Your mute's off.
Madam Chair, just a quick question. I know that we didn't have any public comment at the subcommittee meetings. I note that there are 4 people signed up for public comment. I don't know the best way to address this, but it seems a little backwards to be voting first and listening to the public comment second. Is there a way to do the public comment before we vote? Or are we just going to vote and then hopefully the public, then the public's going to tell us what they think of what we did?
Well, we do have summaries of what the public comment was going to be. I'm just taking a quick glance. They're somewhat vague, but they largely tend to do with citizen outreach. Amigo, is there any sort of issue with doing public comment earlier?
No, Madam Chair, it would just be restricted to the 4 individuals that have previously registered. But I'm sure that we can have them to provide comment at this point.
I understand, Delegate Simon. I understand the point you are making there. I suppose my question would, this has come up a number of times and we have not heard any public comment yet really on addressing this, even though the motion was made back in January. Is there any discussion or thoughts on that right now from the rest of the commission on whether to kind of go out of order and hear public comment, which may or may not be relevant to this topic?
Madam Chair, this is Brandon Hutchins. I think we should see if we have some public comment on this particular issue. If I had to put money on it, I'd say we do.
Okay. Anyone else?
Madam Chair, I would agree. This is Sean Kumar. I think Delegate Simon raises a great point, and this is probably the first, vote of significant substance we've taken. There was not the opportunity for the public to speak at all during the subcommittee meeting. And even if it turns out that the comments are not relevant to the votes, I think it's important that we take the time to hear those in case they are.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
This is Claire Waters.
Yes.
I don't know if this is helpful, but we did
Mm-hmm.
receive a few public comments about council that were written. Mm-hmm.
Well, at this time, if you wouldn't mind, maybe are you able to read those?
Yeah,
aloud?
I have
think that
it.
might be very helpful.
Yeah, I can pull up a couple. The first one is from Sarah Fitzgerald from Falls Church, Virginia. To the Virginia Redistricting Commission, following its meeting this past week, I was concerned that the Commission's Budget and Finance Subcommittee voted 5-3 to recommend that the Commission issue RFPs seeking legal counsel only from lawyers affiliated with each of the political parties. While I have previously submitted public comments on this issue, I am concerned about how this divided decision could be perceived by the public and opinion leaders throughout the Commonwealth at this important point in the Commission's process. As Senator Newman said, the Commission will take a vote and it will be time to move on. But up to now, the Commission has worked hard to take a bipartisan approach. It should continue to search for compromise among all the sides that are represented at the table. Hiring partisan counsel may make it easier to sell a redistricting plan to legislators. It may, however, make it more difficult to sell a plan to the citizens of Virginia, some of whom remain deeply cynical about whether our voter-approved redistricting process can work. In addition, political commentators will likely point to the decision as a victory for the same old supporters of political gerrymandering. Some observations. Number one, the subcommittee rejected the idea of issuing an RFP for nonpartisan or neutral counsel. Issuing these RFPs would be the easiest way to confirm, as some of the legislators insist that there is no such thing as a nonpartisan redistricting expert. However, by refusing to even issue the RFPs, the Commission is sending a message that its mind is already made up and it's not open to any other approach. What kind of message does that send to Virginia citizens before the Commission has even scheduled its first public hearing? Are your minds already made up? Are you willing to even consider approaches other than those taken in the past by commission members who, as members of the General Assembly, have now set themselves up as experts on redistricting? Number 2, the commission has been more than happy to accept nonpartisan legal advice from the lawyers who work for the Division of Legislative Services and or the Office of the Attorney General. Why is this legal question so different? Can't you at least pose the question to the legal profession and see who offers their services? Over the past decade, Virginia taxpayers have been forced to bear many of the costs associated with legal battles over gerrymandered districts. As some commissioners noted, hiring 2 counsels to represent the party's views may make it easier to sell a plan to partisan legislators, but it will amount to a continued waste of taxpayer money. If the parties need to hire counsel to provide advice from a partisan perspective, let their respective caucuses foot the bill. If helpful, let those lawyers testify before the commission or submit public comments, just like the rest of us will have to if we want our views to be considered. If the partisan lawyers raise valid points, the commission can, as a whole, consider their opinions and respond. So far, the commission has come up with many creative ideas for preserving its bipartisan approach and has done an admirable job of keeping politics out of its deliberations. The Judicial Selection Panel did the same thing with the applicants that it reviewed. As a matter of course, you should always ask yourself, is a compromise possible? While decisions on RFPs were delegated to the Budget and Finance Subcommittee, this is in fact a bigger decision than just a procurement document, and one the whole commission should discuss thoughtfully. May I offer a compromise approach that will keep your options open for a brief period of time and communicate that you are more open-minded than your initial vote suggested. Number 1, issue the RFPs for neutral or nonpartisan legal counsel, as well as the partisan RFPs. Number 2, try to make a choice among the respondents to the first group of the RFPs. If the choice cannot be unanimous, at least follow the same guidelines that you will have to follow when you approve your ultimate plan, namely that the lawyer or law firm must be the choice of supermajority of commission members. Number 3, if no lawyer responds or responders to the nonpartisan RFPs are not qualified, then proceed to award contracts to 2-party affiliated firms. Number 4, if commissioners do not feel like they have the time to scope out the partisan leanings of lawyers proposing to be nonpartisan, publicize their names and let other partisan activists do it for you. Number 5, if the commission still cannot decide on a single counsel, let commission members affiliated with each of the parties pick a firm from those that responded to the nonpartisan RFP. While time is of the essence, this decision is important enough that it should not be rushed through the full commission on June 7th. There will still be time to make a decision from a bigger pool of respondents by early July. This approach will provide commission members with 2 more weeks to reflect on the issue and hear from the public, and to more carefully determine what kind of legal advice is actually available. In the end, the commission may still end up hiring partisan counsel following this kind of approach. However, will at least communicate to the public that members are trying to keep an open mind on the issue and still trying to seek a consensus. In all of your deliberations, that should be your ultimate goal. That was a lengthy one. I can read Sarah Fitzgerald from Falls Church.
Okay. And did you have any other sort of on-point public comment? Because there is always the opportunity. It's not necessarily online comment, but or at the same time comment, but there was an opportunity for people to post the written comments.
I think all of the other comments are on different topics. Most is about the communications, and then there are strategies for redrawing the maps as well. There is one that is long, but she did separate it into sections. And under the legal counsel topic, it says, I've written about my disappointment in the highly partisan discussion about hiring 2 sets of legal counsel. I still hope that RFPs can be issued for a neutral, nonpartisan legal team, as well as 2 RFPs for Democrat and Republican legal teams. That was from Chris DeRosa in Arlington. But I think that covers some of the public comment on counsel.
Okay. I mean, we have 4 people limited at 2 minutes today. If they want their opportunity to, we can have that now. We won't be having it again after the meeting. So it'll just be confined to that. I don't have a problem with that going out of order. Since I think there's been some comment with the commission, we should hear that just in case first. And so Claire or Amigo, if you want to open the public comment up. And it, again, is limited to 2 minutes apiece.
Okay, it should be starting momentarily.
Madam Chair, this is Shay. Is there an order that you want the attendees to come in? Did you get the list for the 4? And you can let me know who you want to go first, and I can allow them in.
I'm sorry. We can go from the order that they came up. I recognize 3 of them who've already spoken before, but we can just start with Ms. DeRosa. She says that she will be available beginning at 10:50, so she can go now. If that's possible.
Yes, she's been promoted.
Hi, I think I'm connected now. Am I connected?
Yes, Ms. DeRosa, I apologize. We can hear you.
Okay, sorry. Good morning, commissioners. My name is Chris DeRosa, and I'm speaking this morning as co-chair of the redistricting committee of the League of Women Voters of Virginia. We think it's important to share some ideas again as you make some key decisions today. Transparency is a key strength of this new redistricting process. Virginians want this process to be fair, open, and nonpartisan. You must communicate effectively with us and hear our voices. We're pleased that the Commission plans to release an RFP for a communications director who can determine how best to reach all Virginians, whether it's print media, radio, or social media, and use our tax dollars wisely. We recommend that the Commission develop a vibrant, more user-friendly website. Your new website is a step in the right direction, but it definitely needs improvement. Would you consider hiring a webmaster to create and maintain a high-quality website? Michigan's redistricting site is excellent, as some of you have seen. It's very informative and very user-friendly. The public input portal, which is like a Google form, which makes it so easy to submit comments, which are then uploaded automatically into a gallery where you can sort them and view every submission in real time. Third, we suggest that you schedule as many public hearings as possible to hear from Virginians. Consider using the 21 planning districts rather than the 8 Weldon-Cooper regions, which may be insufficient. Keep in mind that some regions are dense in population, so you should be prepared for many hours of testimony. Other regions may have fewer people, but those people may require in-person hearings because of broadband or transportation issues. Fourth, please consider scheduling evening and weekend hours, which would allow working Virginians to attend hearings. They have been blocked from these meetings because of the hours. Finally, we think it's important that all commissioners attend every public hearing, whether in person or virtually. In order to understand what Virginians want, you should listen to us, and we hope that we'll see you again in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. DeRosa. Next, we have Yolanda Roussel.
Good morning. Sorry, just having a little technical difficulty here. Yes, my name is Yolanda Roussel, and I am representing and the president of the Stafford NAACP. And our stand on this is that you will indeed allow the commission to work with the community. And one of our questions actually is, will this commission mandate the citizen participation on the redistricting commission or board in all counties and cities? That's my question.
Thank you for your question. At this time, this is public comment, so we're certainly listening to your question, and we will discuss as a commission and come to some conclusions probably during the subcommittee on your question. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for your question. And next, I believe we have Ken Chasen.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yes, Mr. Chasen, we can hear you.
All right, sorry. All right, good morning. This is Ken Chasen from Charlottesville. I would like to comment on the process and timeline the Redistricting Commission is using to redraw, if needed, the state's election maps. Virginia has a total of 151 distinct election maps that includes 11 congressional district maps, 40 state Senate district maps, and 100 Virginia House of Delegate member maps. Assuming the worst case scenario that all of Virginia's election maps will have to be at the very least modified or perhaps completely redrawn, this means the Redistricting Commission would have to produce an average of 3.35 new or modified election maps per day once the 45-day mapping period begins. I would like to propose a divide and conquer strategy for how the Redistricting Commission approaches how it will redraw any election maps. Consider having the 16 members of the Redistricting Commission be divided into 3 teams of 5 members each, with each team having its own project leader, and a 16th person would be chosen as the overriding project manager. Team number 1 would be devoted to redrawing, if needed, the state's congressional district maps. Team number 2 would be devoted to redrawing, if needed, Virginia's state Senate election maps. And finally, team number 3 would be devoted to redrawing, if needed, Virginia's state delegate election maps. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Chasen. And our final commenter is Aaron Corbett.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, ma'am, I can hear you.
Thank you. And thank you so much to Delegate Simon and to Commissioner Brandon Hutchins for advocating for this space. My name is Erin Corbett. I'm sure I am by now a very familiar face, but just wanted to reiterate that part of the work that I do with the Virginia Civic Engagement Table is to solicit feedback from our many partners who work in this space. And I just wanted to provide a statement about the council RFPs that our team helped put together this morning. If the goal of having bipartisan council is to ensure the commission is fully informed and be able to make an impartial decision, then there is a clear need for a third nonpartisan council with experience working in voting rights from a racial justice perspective. There is ample evidence that both parties have at times subordinated the interests of communities of color to those of the parties, and without a third council, the commission would be left without this important perspective. Further, the public must be assured that this is not simply a party-driven endeavor, but one that aims to work together to transcend partisan concerns and draw fair maps that ensure fair representation for all Virginians. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, and I believe that concludes the public comment period. And we are now able to, we have listened to the public comments on that topic, and we can move to the, I believe there was a motion to amend or provide an amendment or substitute motion for having a nonpartisan option in addition to, or as an alternate to, well, sending them all at the same time. So, Senator Newman, do you have your mute off? Okay.
Just briefly, as the maker of the original motion, I appreciate Mrs. Harris
Yes.
and Mr. Kumar. They were very articulate in our subcommittee, but I think this commission's got to decide whether or not we're going to start off on a bipartisan nature or not. I honestly was hoping that this would have been the easy one, to have bipartisanship on both sides, not picking one or the other, not going that deeply into someone's background to have to ask them every question to out whether or not they are falling on one side or the other. It's a very complicated portion of law. Madam Chair, I hope we would stick with the original motion with all respect to the maker of the amendment and vote down the amendment and vote for the other. I think time is of the essence and we need to get going. We have a deadline of July 12th, hopefully to get this person on board. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Newman. Is there any other discussion before we take up the vote on the motion to amend the original motion?
Madam Chair, if I may, I echo and appreciate the input from the citizen speakers. This is Sean Kumar. And, to Senator Barker's question earlier, raises a good point, actually, that we hadn't, I think, fully considered in this, is that if we vote for Ms. Harris's substitute motion, we're publishing 3 RFPs, which gives us the options. That doesn't mean we have to hire, at the end of the day, any counsel. I know we need counsel. So we would have the option, I think, to still, and it would probably still be within the budget, to hire a Democrat counsel or Republican counsel and a neutral counsel, or if we're persuaded that we could find a neutral counsel, it gives us that option as well. So my hope is that we would mind, and I think that's what this vote is about.
Thank you, Mr. Kumar. Delegate Simon?
Briefly here, we have an opportunity. This is our first real test to commissioners to find out if we're going to listen to the public or not. And so I really hope that everybody's going to support Ms. Harris's motion. We've heard extensive, lengthy public written and oral comments supporting this approach. I think if we tell the citizens they don't, and the speakers, they don't know what they're talking about, we're going to advertise this restrictive RFP and exclude the option of even having a citizen commission, a neutral third-party lawyer come in. I think we're sending a really bad signal to the public that is taking a lot of time and effort to make their voices heard on this matter. So I hope that we'll support Ms. Harris's motion.
Thank you, Delegate Simon. And I have Greta Harris had to, she put into the chat, I have to hop on a plane to Blacksburg. I vote no on Senator Newman's motion for issuing partisan legal counsel RFPs. I vote yes for my revised motion where RFPs would be issued for both neutral and partisan legal counsel with a commission final decision held later. Is there any other additional
Madam Chair?
Comment? Yes, Mr. Harrell.
I think Senator Newman's point that we could try as we may to try to determine whether someone is completely neutral, which I don't think that's possible ever in any situation, especially applying complicated laws to complicated factual situations in multiple districts. In fact, as the gentleman from Charlottesville pointed out, over 150. We can't find that out in this period of time. We are postponing the inevitable decision. And that is that the best decision, informed decision we can make is to have information from both sides. As a point of legal clarification, I would like for Brooks to explain whether we can even have discussions as individual commission members by Virginia law with parties that are not members of this commission. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harrell. Brooks, are you there to answer that question? And then I have a hand up from Mr. Feliciano. So Brooks, if you could.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. The members of the commission can certainly talk to any staff. If they hired staff, they could talk to those hired staff. But if it's not staff or members of the commission, then the law states that you can't talk to anyone outside of staff or other members of the commission about matters relating to redistricting and reapportionment.
So if as two of our commission members mentioned, we could hire our own outside staff, unrelated to the commission dollars, unrelated to commission procedures, then we couldn't talk to them. Is that correct?
Madam Chair, if they were staff of the commission, you could talk to them. If they're not staff of the commission, then you couldn't talk to them. So if they were people hired by some other entity, then probably they wouldn't be staff of the commission, so you couldn't talk to them. But if the commission's the one making the hiring decision and paying for them, then you almost certainly can talk to them. Yes.
Thank you.
I think the public comment we got speaks to that. Is that if the
is that Mr. Kumar announcing yourself?
Sorry about that.
Okay. And then we have Mr. Feliciano after that, just so you're aware.
Council could submit comment like anyone else, but right, the type of discussion or attorney-client discussion probably couldn't happen.
Okay, Mr. Feliciano, I know your hand is up.
Yes, ma'am. Chairwoman, bottom line, it's simple. I mean, this is a bipartisan commission. 8 Republicans, 8 Democrats. Makes sense to have a lawyer from each. I am definitely under the opinion that we're not going to find that unicorn. Okay? It's not going to happen. They're going to lean one way or the other. That's just the facts of life. So us, by sending out all 3, I mean, yeah, it's a make me feel good, but the reality is the reality. And that's my 2 cents.
Thank you, Mr. Feliciano. And we're at 11:08 right now. I believe we're scheduled, Amigo, to be, or Claire, to go till 11:30. Is that correct?
I believe it is, Madam Chair, I believe it's 10 to 12.
10 to 12. Okay. Very good. So we have a little bit more time. Okay. So with that, are we able to now take up, is there any other discussion before we go take up the vote on the amendment?
Madam Chair, and I hate to, I know we're rushed, but James Brinio here, by the way.
Yes, Mr. Brinio.
I get the feeling that the opinion that we should just pick 2 attorneys. I understand that. I get where you're coming from, but this is a big decision, and I still don't understand why we wouldn't take the opportunity to at least investigate whether or not there's somebody that can satisfy both sides of the aisle. Yes, we are a bipartisan commission, but I didn't volunteer my time just because I was going to sit on my side of the aisle. And I hope that most people here aren't in this because we're going to sit on our sides of the aisle and just do it exactly the way it was done before and just an extension of the legislature. And I think Delegate Simon's point is really important. We want to send a message to the community that we are making an effort to do it differently. And we could go at this over and over again. I just don't see why we would cut off ourselves from additional information and additional opportunities to at least hear from somebody that's coming in here going to say that they're nonpartisan. Thank you.
Madam Chair, if I may briefly.
Very briefly.
This is Sean Kumar, and I agree with Mr. Benio. I don't, yes, the way that this was written this amendment was written by the members of the General Assembly, which is obviously not perfect and passed by the voters. There was a political component of being appointed. I do not feel beholden to either party. I do not care which party ends up with more or less seats in any one of these types of districts that we're drawing. I'm doing this for the citizens of Virginia so we can try to have good representation. So I reject the proposal that it has to be partisan, even though the bill was written in a bipartisan manner. It doesn't have to be that way.
Thank you, Mr. Kumar. I think everyone who has wanted to speak has spoken at length and during the subcommittee. So, Amigo, if you are able to call to do the roll call vote on the amendment at this time.
Thank you, Madam. Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to restate the substitute motion so that everyone knows what they're voting on. The substitute motion was made by Ms. Harris and seconded by Mr. Kumar. It would be to issue 3 RFPs, one seeking an attorney or law firm with demonstrated background representing the Democratic Party institutions or individuals, one for Republican Party institutions or individuals, and a third one that would be neutral. And with that, I will call the roll. Mr. Abrenio?
I'm in support of the motion, the amended motion.
Mr. Feliciano?
I support Senator Newman's motion.
So is your vote no on the substitute motion?
I vote no on Mrs. Harris. I vote yes on Senator
One
Newman.
vote at a time.
Yeah. Mr. Gilliam?
No.
Mr. Harrell?
No.
Mr. Hutchins?
Yes.
Mr. Kumar?
Yes.
Delegate Adams?
No.
Senator Barker?
No.
Senator Locke?
No.
Senator McDougal?
Nay.
Delegate McQuinn? Delegate McQuinn? Senator Newman?
No.
Delegate Ransom?
No.
Delegate Simon?
I don't think there'll be an opportunity to reconsider, so I'm going to go ahead and vote aye.
Ms. Harris? Ms. Babachenko?
No.
Madam Chair, the vote is 10-4. The motion, the vote is 4 ayes and 10 nays. The motion does not carry.
Thank you, Amigo. And that takes us to the original motion before the commission.
Madam Chair, I'm sorry. I thought I heard 5 ayes. And I think Mr. Kumar maybe heard the same thing. I know at the end of the day, the result's the same, but I think the vote count matters a little bit.
Are we counting Ms. Harris's vote that she put into the chat?
The reason I didn't count it, Madam Chair, was because you all did not allow for or establish proxy voting. I just called the roll. But if you all want that, I mean, that would have been the 5th vote. Would you like me to change the tally to 5 to 10?
It's a little bit difficult to take that up in the middle of a vote. It hasn't been discussed previously. I think at this time I would say no, but I will discuss that with Ms. Harris. But we have not. That's not the current procedure right now. And we want to make sure that it applies to everyone so that they all have the opportunity to proxy vote in the future. But Ms. Harris certainly made her point very clear. I think her position is very clear, and that she voted yes for her motion, made the motion, and voted no for, or will vote no for the subsequent motion. Which takes us to the original motion. Amigo, are you able to call the roll call vote on this motion?
Yes, ma'am. And that motion was made by Senator Newman and seconded by Delegate Ransom. It would be to hire the 2 counsel. Mr. Abrenio?
Can I just ask for clarification of procedure at this juncture? I'm trying to figure out if I were to vote no, and this motion didn't pass, we essentially have no council. Is that how that works? Or is there another opportunity? I assume not, but I'd just like clarification how that works.
Madam Chair, maybe I can help just a little bit on my motion.
Yes, sir.
I think James said if you want to vote no and it fails, you'd have an opportunity at a later time to make a different motion. So I think you can vote no if you'd like and still have an opportunity to take up a different motion at another time, sir.
And that was Senator Newman.
Sorry. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Senator Newman.
All right, I will proceed. Mr. Brenio,
I'm going to vote no.
Mr. Feliciano,
I vote yes.
Mr. Gilliam,
Yes.
Mr. Harold,
Aye.
Mr. Hutchins,
No.
Mr. Kumar,
No.
Delegate Adams,
Yes.
Senator Barker,
Aye.
Senator Locke,
Yes.
Senator McDougal,
Aye.
Delegate McQuinn, Senator Newman,
Aye.
Delegate Ransom,
Aye.
Delegate Simon,
No.
Ms. Babichenko,
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion carries 10-4.
And I apologize, amigo. I know Senator Newman discussed this at the beginning, but whether was that encompassing the current RFP with similar amendments made by staff after the fact, or do we need another vote on that issue?
I think we need a separate vote on the RFPs the same way that we did the communications.
So that takes us to that vote, amigo. If you could call the roll call vote for approval of the specific request for the proposal that was recommended by the subcommittee, but really just the substance of the draft, knowing that staff will make some minor adjustments.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Well, is there, is there a motion?
Yeah, Madam Chairman, it's Rick Harrell. I move that we utilize the two RFPs that are sent out as in substance and as they might be clarified by the staff.
Thank you, Mr. Harrell. Is there a second?
I'll second Senator Barker.
Thank you, Senator Barker. Is there any discussion on the specific, on that specific issue of the RFP? Hearing no discussion, amigo, now will you please call the roll call vote?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Abrenio,
No.
Mr. Feliciano,
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam,
Yes.
Mr. Harold,
Aye.
Mr. Hutchins,
No.
Mr. Kumar,
No.
Delegate Adams,
Yes.
Senator Barker,
Yes.
Senator Locke,
Yes.
Senator McDougal,
Aye.
Delegate McQuinn, Senator Newman,
Aye.
Delegate Ransom,
Aye.
Delegate Simon,
No.
Ms. Babichenko,
Yes.
the motion carries 10-4, Madam Chair.
Thank you, amigo. And now we will be moving on to what's labeled as item 2, the report of Citizen Engagement Subcommittee And I know Mr. Abrinio and Mr. Harrell had both have a comment to make. So let's start with Mr. Abrinio on the update from your subcommittee.
Madam Chair, I actually think it probably makes more sense for Mr. Harrell to go first because we split it subject matter wise, and he's going to be talking about public hearings first. So logically, I think it makes sense for him to go first.
Okay, fair enough. Mr. Harrell?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Mr. Brino and I had already decided to split our report in the same way that we happened to deal with the issue on two different meetings when we were chairing in two different times. There's no particular rationale for that other than simplicity. I'm going to report on the public hearings, and Mr. Brino is going to report on the citizen engagement guidelines, and each of them are very important. And if each of you have received a proposal from our committee for 8 hearings in each one of the districts or regions proposed, as if you, I can imagine you reviewed from the Weldon Cooper Center that split in Charlottesville, split up the state into 8 regions. And we would suggest that 4 of these hearings be public hearings, in-person hearings, be made before we make a decision on putting a plan out for the public. All of these in July and a week apart and the 3rd day of August, and to complete it. And then the other 4 being compressed into a week from 9/20 to 9/24, with 2 on each day, 2 on separate days in different parts of the state. So every region will have a public hearing, half of them before and half of them behind. At the same time, we will have 4 additional virtual meetings in reverse order, with the 4 that would be having the hearings in the after we published our report, and having theirs having the virtual hearings early. If you look at the it becomes clear when you look at the sheet, clearer than the way I'm explaining it, by the way. But every region gets a public hearing, every region gets a virtual hearing. Virtual comments may be made if it's technically feasible at the in-person hearings. So people can attend at their closest in-person hearing. So if you are in the South Side region, for instance, and you live in Cumberland, Buckingham, or Prince Edward, or Nottoway, and you find it easier to go to Richmond, then so be it. And we will accept your comments there. Because if we don't do that, then some people have a long, long way to go. So we're trying to give everybody access. There was also a sheet included from the 2011 redistricting cycle of the 7 hearings made in different parts of the state. Could have been 8, I guess, because 2 in Northern Virginia. That left out the Eastern region. That's not our intention to leave out the Eastern region, but to go at each one. One of our decision points is to pick the dates, and another one is to pick the places and the times. So I'm going to propose something for consideration and discussion by the commission, just to get the ball rolling. I'm going to propose that we use at staff's discretion, and let the staff do this, because for us to all get in, decide, well, we can be here this or be here that, because you've got the flexibility to go one place or another, we use the locations as amended or changed or suggested by the staff that were used in 2011, of course, with another Eastern region location to be determined. Let's see. And I'm going to propose that the staff pick a time that seems to work well at these hearings, and and then we can hear from the commission members what time of day they think might be best. You can make an argument for or against any time of day. And so that's open for your discussion. And let's see. And the last issue that remains to be seen, remains to be selected, is the presiding commissioner. Usually we've had the citizens for all these other decision points as far as presiding officers. We have picked the so-called, I hate to use the word citizen anymore, so I use non-elected representatives, of which I happen to be one, and Mr. Brino another one, that maybe these two people decide among themselves and one of them be the presiding commissioner. I don't see this as a major decision point in terms of precluding anyone's participation in our hearings. Does anyone have any questions about the locations or the place or the number of hearings, virtual and in person, to ask me to clarify at this point before I turn it over to Mr. Brino? Okay, Madam Chair, I yield to Mr. Brino.
I actually did have a quick question. I think that we had mentioned these are the 8.
And this is Mr. Brino speaking, just to make sure that's clear.
Sorry about that. The possibility of additional public hearings if needed. I know that we said 16, but we'd also reference the possibility, should it be needed, of additional hearings.
We did mention that, and but we didn't make a decision, and unless I would think that we might. It's not my decision to make. The commission. I thought we might wait a while before we decide to throw in another one or two. But that's.
So before we move from the public hearing schedule, there is a recommendation from the subcommittee, and that recommendation is that at least 4 commission members be in attendance at the hearings. And so is that, Mr. Harrell, is that something, is there a motion to adopt that recommendation?
Yes, I went over that with our last commission meeting when I reported, and this is our proposal, that at least 2 non-elected representatives and 2 elected representatives be at each public hearing, in-person hearing.
And does that also include a balance of party affiliation?
Yes, it does.
Okay. As well as a balance of Senate versus, is that all contemplated in your recommendation? A balanced proposal, so everyone is represented, is that?
Yeah, I would say it's about fair and balanced, but that's not a term that's acceptable in polite society these days. So yes, that's our proposal. I could make this into a motion and you deal with Mr. Brino's comments separately. Is that easier? Or
let's address, yes, let's address that motion, your motion first.
All right.
Mr. Harrell, you're on mute.
Sorry. Citizen Engagement Subcommittee recommends that we have 8 in-person hearings, split 4 and 4, one among each region, for these hearings to be in July and 3rd day of August, and the other 4 to be between the 20th and the 24th of September, and 4 virtual meetings in each of the regions, 4 before the presentation of the redistricting plans, and 4 in that same week of 9/21 to 9/25 of September, and that one Democrat nominated non-elected representative and one Republican nominated representative, non-elected representative, at least these two, be at each of these in-person hearings, and and that we have one elected Republican and one elected Democrat at each of these hearings. Gets to be right much to remember here. Let's see. And finally, that we let the staff pick the exact location, and staff has already picked the time, so we pick the times as it on the sheet. So let's see, anything else? And the staff pick the timing of the hearings. If I know it's going to be this complicated, I would have written it all out.
Okay, well, is there a second on that motion? Did everybody understand the motion and get listen to the full motion? I don't think it's really deviating from anything we've discussed in the past. It's really a big summary of what's going on in the subcommittee. So is there a second to adopt the subcommittee's recommendation?
Well,
Madam Chair, if the subcommittee recommended it, I will second the nomination.
Thank you, Senator Newman. Is there any discussion? Okay, Mr. Kumar and then Delegate Simon.
Yeah, I agree with the spirit of the motion. I appreciate the other subcommittee's work. My concern is if we're using the exact dates fixed in the recommendation or the report from the subcommittee, I know personally that I've already got a number of commitments for some of those dates that I don't know. My concern is maybe we don't keep those locked in dates that we have, because I don't know that we can right now meet our own requirements based on fixed dates. Like, I know personally there's a number of the ones in July I may not be able to make, especially in person. And then so we've also got to think about, the logistics of who goes where, what's closer for one people could cause a domino effect if somebody's got to drive, 6 hours. So that's my concern. Maybe staff and the subcommittee have thought through that.
Thank you, Mr. Kumar. Delegate Simon?
Which I was just going to ask what the vote of the subcommittee was. Was this a unanimous recommendation of the subcommittee?
Yes, it was.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Madam Chairman, this is McDougall.
Yes, Mr. McDougall. Senator.
I just want to make sure, are we voting on the number of meetings and the type in person versus virtual? Or are we voting on the specific days with this motion?
My understanding was the recommendation was the types of meetings and the number of meetings. Unless Mr. Harrell, I didn't hear you include specific dates when you were talking about when you were describing your motion.
I did include those dates, but I was not really intending to bind the staff to a specific date, but within that time frame.
Okay, so your motion right now before the commission is simply the number and the makeup and sort of what our effort is to be doing, whether it's virtual, whether it's in person. Is that fair to say?
That's fair to say at this point, yes.
Okay. Are there any other questions based on that clarification or comment?
I may, Madam Chair, this is a legal aid legislative services. I just want to make sure that everything is clear. I think that what Mr. Harrell's motion, it's in 3 parts, and one of them is to make sure that we have 8 hearings before the maps are drawn or the redistricting plans are established, and 8 after, with half of each being in person and half being virtual. I think that to Mr. Kumar's point, staff has suggested dates, and that was because of the scheduling that seemed to be a concern with the commission members. We can, we have the more general idea of making sure that we have those 8 hearings at some point before August the 16th, and then that we have the others, after you all have drawn the maps. We only suggested the dates because we thought it would be easier for the commission members just in terms of planning their schedules and picking which one they were going to be able to come to. So I just wanted to be clear. Mr. Harold didn't include the actual dates, but I guess what you all are saying is that you want the 8 before maps and the 8 after and before they're presented to the General Assembly. Is that what I'm hearing?
I believe, yes, amigo, that is what you are hearing, and we need further discussion on the actual dates. Correct. Or feedback, maybe another calendar request, or individuals can email suggested dates, and the dates are a starting point. We can do it that way.
Madam Chair, this is Claire.
Yes.
From DLS. Would it be helpful to send out a poll to get everyone's schedule that way?
Sure.
In person?
Or the alternate is to look at what had been suggested already and circulated and to see what the problem dates are, so we don't have to start from scratch. Maybe some of those dates do work for a lot of people, and we can see where that, which meetings we can populate, and then reschedule ones where they're just not going to work.
Okay.
We've got Senator Barker raising his hand.
Yes, just one note as it relates to scheduling dates. We expect that we will have at least 1 and probably 2 special sessions in summer and early fall to deal with a couple of different issues. We don't know the dates on those yet. The guess is that the first one will be either starting sometime in the latter half of July or in August. And the second one will probably be in late August or in September, probably. So we'll need to try to work to clear those with the calendars that get set between the latest, the Senate and the House and the governor's office, which will specify the dates for those special sessions.
Thank you, Senator Barker. That's very helpful to know. So we may be making some more changes than we thought. When we get that information, we will include it and we will go from there.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other comment on the motion that has been seconded? Then, amigo, if you could call the roll call or complete the roll call.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Obrenio. Mr. Feliciano.
Mr. Obrenio's not, he's still muted.
Yeah. Okay. Amigo, I hate to belay. Can you just restate the motion again just to make sure we're all on the same
Yes,
page?
okay.
I think
Yes,
I know, but I just want to clarify.
Yeah. The motion was made by Mr. Harold and seconded by Senator Newman. It's 3 portions. The first one is to schedule 8 hearings before the maps are drawn, and with half of them being in person and half of them being virtual, and to schedule 8 hearings after the redistricting plans have been developed and before they're presented to the General Assembly, and to have the in-person meetings be in each of the 8 regions as indicated by the Weldon Cooper map. The second portion of it is that at least 4 commission members be in attendance, a Democrat and Republican appointed non-elected commission member, and a Democrat and Republican legislator. And the third portion of it is to authorize staff to choose the location and the times for those hearings.
I vote yes.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Feliciano?
I vote yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Mr. Harold?
Aye.
Mr. Hutchins?
Aye.
Mr. Kumar?
Yes.
Delegate Adams?
Yes.
Senator Barker,
Aye.
Senator Locke,
Aye.
Senator McDougal,
Aye.
Delegate McQuinn, Senator Newman,
Aye.
Delegate Ransom,
Aye.
Delegate Simon,
Aye.
Ms. Babachenko.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you, Amigo. Now moving on to B, the public participation guidelines recommendation from the subcommittee. Mr. Abrinio, could you please provide an update on that?
Thank you, Madam Chair. James Abrinio speaking. So what we did was we laid out in more detail the guidelines to participate in the public hearings, and many of them sort of mirror what we're going on here. But so we've agreed, or we recommend that comments can be submitted both in writing or live in public, in the public hearing in person or virtually. To give live testimony virtually, we're recommending that you sign up at least 24 hours in advance, and that's simply to allow the logistics so we can get everybody arranged and the Zoom links and all that. For the in-person testimony, our recommendation is that you have up to 10 minutes after the hearing is started, and that way people can essentially sign up in person, and even if they're running a little bit late. Speaking will be on a first come, first serve basis. If you're speaking in person, you'll sign up upon arrival, and we're recommending that there be a limitation of 3 minutes to speak. We've also, in our materials that have been published to the public, the staff has been kind enough to create a rules of conduct that essentially give essentially rules when you're testifying, codes of conduct, behavior, and kind of how to provide that testimony. It also provides guidance for us commissioners as well and what our responsibilities will be. So we provided that for you all to review and consider.
Thank you, Mr. Abrinio. Do you have any official motions?
I don't. Am I the one who moves?
Oh, well, I mean, you don't have to. Does anybody have a motion? Are we taking action on this? I have a note that we can take action on this. If you do not, we can discuss what you've provided. Does anybody have any comment on what the subcommittee has recommended as the public participation guidelines? Mr. Kumar? Yes.
Thank you. Just questions about, and I don't know if this came up in the subcommittee, what we're going to do with the input, right? We know that we're not all going to be able to attend all of the meetings. Hopefully even the in-person ones, I guess, will be broadcast via the web. I would hope. I don't know if that was in the report or not, but, are we going to, I'm glad we're going to have robust public opportunity to participate. I just have concerns that we make sure that we're doing something to catalog that information. I don't know if that's something through staff. I don't know if that's something that maybe the Budget Finance Committee needs to, maybe that's a need that we have that won't be covered through our proposed RFPs. But, I don't want the public, I don't want to just go through the motions of public comment and we're not being able to aggregate and use that data to inform our decisions as we do our work.
If I may, Madam Chair, this is Amigo Wade with Legislative Services. The budget request that came from the Citizen Engagement Committee early in the process included an amount to set aside to have the in-person hearings broadcast. And we're going to try to get that done, as well as to hire court reporting services. And that, I think that is included in the budget worksheet that you saw earlier today. So there has been a request made for money to be set aside for those two things.
Madam Chair, if I may as well.
Yes.
A component of that RFP for communications and outreach services includes some method of cataloging that information that would be given during those public presentations and making that useful to commission members when they're doing mapping. So that is part of the RFP for those services. So if we do hire for that position, hopefully someone will be able to fill that niche.
Excellent.
Well, is there any other issues that
Madam Chair?
underneath this? Yes, Senator Barker.
Yeah. I have a question and a comment, sort of combined. The question is, why would we be limiting sign up for in-person comments to up to 10 minutes after the hearing is commenced? If people are interested in making the effort to come to an in-person hearing to speak directly to us, it may be a work day or other issues that they have. And if they can't get there within 10 minutes of the start time, why would we want to deny them the opportunity to comment if the hearing is still going on when they get there?
Thank you for your question. Mr. Abrinio, would you like to discuss that? Was that discussed at the subcommittee?
It was. I think the concern was essentially extending the meeting indefinitely because people show up last minute. That being said, I would like the full commission to discuss it because I haven't really been in a whole lot of public hearings. I imagine people here have information how from a practical standpoint, how does that work? I'd invite people to give their suggestions on that.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Senator
Locke.
Yeah. I think initially there was no time limit put. It was anybody who had signed up prior to the meeting were the only people who were going to be allowed to speak. And I think then Senator McDougall said, well, why are we just allowing only people who signed up prior to the meeting be allowed to speak? So why don't we give them some extended time after the meeting has started? And that's where the 10 minutes came in. Let's give people time after the meeting has started to be allowed to speak. And I think that's where the 10 minutes came in, to give people time after the meeting has actually commenced, to be allowed to give some extended time after the meeting has actually started, to be allowed to speak. Because initially it was, even after the meeting has started, people wouldn't have been allowed to be given any time to speak. It was only people who had signed up prior to.
Thank you for that.
If I'm correct, Ryan.
Madam Chairman, this is Senator McDougall, and yes, Senator Locke, you are 100% accurate. I think you and I, having been, and Senator Barker and Senator Newman and others have been at a lot of these public hearings where sometimes people see the hearing set at 2:00 in the afternoon. They show up at 2:00. We should allow them to be able to sign up and participate. So giving some time after the meeting has started to allow those signups to occur, we thought was important to make sure that those citizens that took the effort and energy to come to the meeting would at least have the opportunity to speak, even though they would be in the queue at that point. So they would be at the end of the line, but they would still have the opportunity to speak.
Thank you for that clarification, Senator McDougall. Does that answer your question, Senator Barker, that it was more of an extension versus a limitation?
Well, it answers it to some extent. I'm still not convinced why we should want to deny someone who makes the effort to come and is there while the hearing is still going on, but not allow them to speak if they were not signed up previously.
Is this let me see who's
Delegate Simon?
Delegate Simon.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with Senator Barker. I don't know that we ought to restrict it to 10 minutes. I get the concern about these things going on indefinitely, but if we're only having a limited number in each region and people are going to come from a great distance to participate, if they show up 20 minutes late, or frankly, if people see things going on and didn't know they were going to need to want to testify, but because of the way that things unfold, I think that distinguishing these public hearings from here, we allow public comment, and we've been fairly restrictive and fairly prescriptive about that at these meetings of ourselves. But I think when we're having a public hearing, we ought to err on the on the side of allowing for more opportunities for folks to speak, particularly if this is the 1 or 2 times that the commission is going to be in their neck of the woods and they've come to speak in person. So I would agree with Senator Barker's concern. Maybe if we could strike the 10-minute limitation and leave it maybe a little more open-ended to the discretion of the chair about how much and whether or not to allow more people to continue signing up.
Madam Chairman?
Yes, Senator McDougall.
I would urge the members to think about having some sort of limitation after the meeting has begun. This might be an unlikely possibility, but it is a possibility. Certainly, some of us have been in public hearings that have gone on for hours. You have to maintain some level of quorum, and it may be that people have set aside 3 to 5 hours to sit through a hearing. And if you have people that sign up past that amount of time and continue to come, it's no better than that you lose your quorum and can't continue to go. So whether 10 minutes is the right time or 30 minutes is the right time, or you say these hearings will last for no more than pick a time frame on the hearing itself, there has to be some sort of time frame if you want to make sure that you have quorum at all of these meetings, particularly if we're only having 4 individual citizens in place. And if somebody is scheduled 4 hours to be at that meeting, but it continues on 5 or 6, if they leave, do you lose quorum? So I ask that y'all reflect on those logistical determinations.
And I think that those are very practical considerations that everyone does need time to think about. Amigo, I don't think this decision, you can correct me if I'm wrong, a decision doesn't need to be made officially on that specific component of the guidelines today. Do you need to know that now?
Only, Madam Chair, that the recommendation is for registration to cease 10 minutes in. If the will of the body is to remove that and then leave that at the discretion of the presiding commissioner or a different time. I just, there is a time that's being recommended 10 minutes after the commencement. So there has to be some sort of direction given to staff as we schedule this as to whether you want the time to be longer or. So I guess the answer is yes. We need some sort of direction.
But do you need that today, or can that be tabled for members to think about it pending our next meeting, kind of as a whole? Do you need a full? No one's made any motions to adjust anything. What specifically do you need? We've got basically 6 minutes left. What does staff need right now from us going forward?
Well, if we can have the substance of the public participation guidelines approved, and I guess that we could leave that question as to how long people will have to register. We can leave that for a later meeting, sometime before we actually have the first in-person meeting. That would be fine.
Is there any
Madam Chairman, this is McDougall again.
Yes.
What about, for the purpose of staff's direction at this point, what if we amended that to 1 hour after the meeting started? And then if we need to adjust it further as we go forward, we can continue to have that discussion. Would that raise a comfort level for Senator Barker and Delegate Simon?
Second. I would second that. That's fine.
Okay.
That sounds fine.
Okay. Amigo, do we need to have a vote on anything? There isn't an actual motion, just a recommendation. Are we having a vote? Do you need us to have a vote, or can we just go forward with this generally as kind of a working?
I think we as staff would like to have a vote on this at this point, and it would be. And the motion would be to accept the public participation guidelines that are recommended by the subcommittee with that one amendment that we have up to 1 hour to register after the hearing is started.
Okay. As the chairman, and I'm not staring at the book right now, can I make that motion?
I think so. Madam.
Okay, I'll make the motion.
Second.
Okay.
Delegate Simon.
Is there any further discussion?
Madam Chair, I'm looking at our own recommendations. I read this as we don't have a limit on how long any particular hearing would be. Correct? Does everybody agree with that?
At this time, yes. I don't think a specific hearing time has been addressed, and that's going to be up for further discussion down the line.
Okay.
But staff just needs a starting off point to start making decisions and getting everything together for rentals and timing and people showing up. Is my understanding. Who's I can't see who's speaking. Amigo, was that you?
Yes, ma'am. I was going to go ahead and read the roll. Mr. Abrinio?
Yes.
Mr. Feliciano?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Mr. Harold?
Aye.
Mr. Hutchins?
Aye.
Mr. Kumar?
Yes.
Delegate Adams?
Yes.
Senator Barker?
Yes.
Senator Locke?
Yes.
Senator McDougal?
Aye.
Delegate McQuinn?
Aye.
Senator Newman?
Aye.
Delegate Ransom?
Aye.
Delegate Simon?
Aye.
Ms. Babachenko?
Aye.
Madam Chair, the motion carries unanimously.
Thank you, Amigo. And in our last 3 minutes, item number 3, the future commission meeting schedule. We don't have anything officially scheduled right now. My thought is that we keep the same period of time available, but that the subcommittees are going to be continuing to meet. And unless if we come to, let's say in 2 weeks, there's not and I have only mentioned, I have not talked about this with the other co-chairs. So this is just my thought. I don't know what Greta's position is on this. That if we do not have any recommendations to be acting on in 2 weeks, that we do not need to meet at that time, and that the work is happening in the subcommittees. So I can put that out there for if anybody has any comment on that. The subcommittees are continuing to meet. There's comment that can be put online, the written comment. Obviously, people were taking advantage of that and have been submitting public comment written. So I'll put that out there that we can secure those time frames, the 2-week sort of cadence every 2 weeks. We have that time set aside if we need to do something, but if we do not have any recommendations specifically at that time, we can wait or postpone them until a future meeting. So I'll put that out there. Does anyone have any thoughts on that? As of now, we can schedule the meeting. Amigo, I don't see any hands or thoughts. So we can just do that for now. Everybody keep your, advertise it. We can keep that time slot available, and I'll discuss with Ms. Harris and staff and see if there's anything that we need to address. But really, the work is being done in the subcommittees at this point, the hard work. And everybody, I think, really appreciates all of the effort going in to discuss all of the issues and come with very thoughtful recommendations that have been very, very much